Svetlana Euferova, originally published on Yandex Zen Mandarinka, narrated by Tatiana Orlova. Shortly before I turned 18, my mother became seriously ill. We lived in a remote village, and that winter turned out to be especially harsh. I kept telling my mom not to rush outside in just her thin house robe, but she had always been strong and healthy and would just laugh it off. "Just for a minute, son," she would say. At first, she developed a harsh cough, and Stepanida, an elderly local woman who knew about herbs, would brew her various herbal teas. Mom claimed they were helping, and I believed her. Why wouldn't I? My mother never lied to me. She was my light in the darkness, kind, beautiful, loving. We lived alone. There was no one else in our lives, just the two of us. By that time, our village had become nearly abandoned. Only elderly people still lived there. Everyone else had long since moved away, each to their own destination. But we had nowhere to go. Thankfully, the village was located not far from the main road. Every day, Mom and I would head to the bus stop from there. She went to work in the next village, and I went to school. One night, Mom's fever spiked dangerously high. I woke up to the sound of her labored breathing, like a train from one of those old war movies. "Son, my son," she called out when I rushed to her side. "I need to tell you." "What, Mom? What do you need?" "You need to find your father, son. Find your father." Her words terrified me. My father had been dead for years. I'd never even met him. Thinking my mother was delirious, I grabbed her small, outdated button phone and ran outside. I had to run far, almost to the main road, because only there, on top of the hill, could I get any cell reception, and even then, only if the weather was good. That night, I was lucky. The sky was clear, the moon casting an eerie glow over everything, like some strange cosmic light. I kept glancing nervously around me, half expecting aliens to descend. Something about that night felt different, like it wasn't just an ordinary night. It felt like something was about to change for her. I managed to call for an ambulance and rushed back. Mom was still lying in bed, whispering something. "Seth, listen to me," she said softly. I leaned in close to her face. "Mom, don't worry. The doctors are coming. They'll help you." "Seth, find your father. There are unsent letters in the drawer. There's an address in them. Maybe he still lives there." "But, Mom, my father's dead," I said, almost crying. "No, Seth. I had to tell everyone that. It was too shameful to admit he didn't love me." "What?" I couldn't believe it. I couldn't accept that anyone could ever not love my mother. And to believe what she was telling me now, it felt impossible. I had always considered my father a hero. The story went that he died saving a little girl from a fire, sacrificing his own life. I had always been proud of him. I didn't want to believe anything that would shatter that image. The ambulance wasn't coming. The medicine wasn't working. My mom's fever only kept rising until she slipped into unconsciousness. I sat beside her, holding her hand, while my thoughts kept drifting back to what she had told me. My mother told me that my father was alive, but I kept pushing those thoughts away. They seemed empty and unimportant at that moment. Only 3 hours after I called did the doctors finally arrive, and they immediately took my mother to the hospital. By morning, she was gone. The only explanation the doctor gave me was that she had waited too long to seek help. Left alone, I ignored the thoughts about my father that kept surfacing in my mind. But eventually, I gave in. After searching through the old dresser, I found the letters my mother had mentioned. All of them were written in her handwriting. Not a single letter had ever been sent. The envelopes had no stamps or postal markings. The small, neat handwriting formed words that didn't explain what had happened between them. The letters were filled only with words of love and stories about me. My mother had never held any anger toward my father. She wrote about how she still loved him. After reading those letters, I felt like I too began to care about the man my mother had once adored so deeply. That's when I decided to do what my mother had asked that night, to find my father. He still lived at the same address written on the envelopes of those unsent letters, and he looked almost exactly like the single old photograph we had of him. "Hello," I said, breaking into a wide smile. As soon as I pressed the doorbell, the door swung open, and I recognized him instantly. I hadn't expected to find him so quickly, so I was both surprised and thrilled. The man looked straight at me, then glanced at the stairwell and asked bluntly, "Who are you?" "I'm Seth, the son of Lily." "Lily who?" "Tikhonova?" he asked, confused. "Never heard of her." He was about to close the door, but I quickly tried to explain. "Wait! It was a long time ago. Maybe you forgot, but I have your photo." I pulled out the old photograph, the one where he was holding my laughing mother, and shoved it toward him. The man took the photo, looked at it, and smiled. Wow, I really was a good-looking guy. Then he looked back at me and handed the photo back. "But the girl, sorry, don't remember her." He closed the door, and I stood there for a moment, staring at the old photo in my hands, confused. Then, determined, I pressed the doorbell again. The door opened. "What do you want now?" "I'm expecting someone any minute. A woman. You understand?" I nodded quickly and began speaking fast, afraid he'd slam the door again. "Listen, you're my father, and I'm your son. I came all the way from the village to find you. Mom died 2 months ago." "What? What son? I don't have any children." "Mom just never told you, but I have her letters she wrote to you but never sent." At that moment the downstairs door slammed, and footsteps echoed up the stairs. "Look, I don't have time right now. Come back later, all right?" he muttered and pushed the door shut. I went downstairs. A middle-aged woman, heavily made up, was coming up the stairs. When she saw me, she smiled like we were old acquaintances and walked past. I went outside and sat down on a bench near the children's playground, watching the building's entrance. About 3 hours later, that same woman left the building. After waiting another 15 minutes, just to be polite, I went back up to my father's apartment. "You again?" my father exclaimed, but this time he let me inside. "My name's Mike," he introduced himself. "I'm Seth," I replied. We shook hands. "So what did you say your mother's name was?" he asked. Lily Tikhonova, Lily Sergeyevna." He chuckled. "So you're named after your grandfather, then?" "Yeah, after my granddad." "Coffee? Got any tea?" "Don't know. Let's check." He walked to the kitchen, and after kicking off my shoes, I followed him. "So, you said you came from a village?" my father asked, rummaging through the kitchen cupboards. "Yeah, from Sidorovka, Pervomaisky district. I lived there with Mom." "For a long time?" "All my life. And tell me, how exactly do you think your mother and I met, if I've never even been to your Sidorovka?" "Mom lived in the city for 2 years. She wanted to go to college, but didn't get accepted the first time." "And what do you plan to do here in the city?" My father gave me a long, careful look, like he was trying to find some resemblance between us. Embarrassed, I lowered my eyes. I want to go to college too. Take evening classes, so I can work during the day." Honestly, that idea had just popped into my head. In reality, my plan had been to apply for full-time study. I had done well in school. Everyone said I had a good chance to get in on a scholarship, and deep down, when I set out to find my father, I'd pictured something completely different. I'd imagined he'd be happy to see me and help me get settled in the city. Stupid thought. Ridiculous, my father said suddenly, pulling me out of my thoughts. He'd found some tea bags, tossed one into a mug, and poured boiling water over it. 5 years of study just to brag about some fancy diploma? All my friends who finished college, you know what they do now? Everything except what their degrees say. You've got to face reality, kid. What are you going to do with that diploma afterwards? I shrugged. Then what should I do? Work, my friend, work. In 5 or 6 years you'll have money for a car, and maybe even a small apartment, something to drive the girls around in, and somewhere to bring them back to. He laughed. If you go to college, all your energy's going to get sucked up by studying. You'll waste your youth. I stared at him wide-eyed. I'd never even dreamed of owning a car. But as he described that life, it suddenly sounded really good. He noticed the excitement in my eyes and smirked. "All right," he said. "You can sleep in the back room. My mother used to live there. Maybe you can help fix it up. I've been meaning to, but never get around to it. And tomorrow I'll show you how real men make money." My father worked in construction. Though he wasn't part of the crew doing the actual work, he recruited and managed teams of builders and finishers, and took a cut from their earnings. Everyone treated him like their boss, and a bit of his authority rubbed off on me too. But being his son didn't make the work any easier. It was hard labor, but he paid me well. My young body and good health helped me manage the physical strain, and even left me some energy for other things. "Listen, Seth, take everything you can from life," my father used to say. "A man's job is to make as many women happy as possible. That's his main mission in this world. Nature had its way. A male must always remain a male. Back when I was your age, I couldn't even keep count of my victories," my father smirked. I learned quickly from him. Turned out, I didn't have to try hard to find another girl. They practically threw themselves at me. Within just a few months, I honestly couldn't even remember the names of all the girls who'd shared my bed. College? I stopped thinking about it entirely. Dad had been right. I liked this life. I bought myself a used car. The girls multiplied. I didn't have enough money for my own apartment yet. So I kept living with my father. Mornings became a strange routine. Dad and I would often see each other at the door, each of us saying goodbye to whatever girl we'd spent the night with. But then I met Vicky, and everything changed. "Are you out of your mind?" Dad stared at me when I told him my plans. "Marriage? That's voluntary slavery. Dad, I love Vicky. Don't you get it? Then love her. Who's stopping you? Or do you need some official permission?" He laughed. "Didn't see her resisting much last night, judging by how loud she was moaning in your room." "That's not the point," I snapped. "I want something different with her. I want to wake up next to her every morning, be with her every day. I don't need anyone else." "Stupid!" Dad shook his head. "That's how you think now. Give it time, you'll get tired of the same face." I looked straight at him. "That's why you never married my mom." Since moving in with him, I'd never once brought up my mother. Instinctively, I'd felt it wasn't something to discuss. But now, I couldn't hold back. Maybe because I'd finally understood what Mom wrote about in those unsent letters. The tenderness I felt for Vicky consumed me. I wanted to change. I wanted to be responsible. I wanted to move mountains for her. And for the first time, I clearly understood this was what a man's life should be about, not the nonsense my father preached. "I never planned to marry anyone," Dad muttered. "And your mother? I don't even remember her. Who knows how many silly village girls tried to cling to me back in the day." "My mother wasn't a fool," I shouted. "You weren't even worthy of her little finger." That same day, I left my father's apartment. I had money. So I rented a place and moved in with Vicky. I didn't quit the job, though. Dad didn't kick me out of the crew either. I was good at what I did and I earned him money. We hardly spoke after that. But when Vicky and I got married a few months later, I still invited him to the wedding. He didn't give any long speeches, just said, "Congrats, even if you are a fool." But he was wrong. I loved married life. Every day I fell more and more in love with my wife. I worked hard to provide for us, took extra jobs. Sometimes I spent almost entire days and nights at construction sites. Then one night I came home late, and Vicky wasn't in bed. I spent the rest of the night calling her, but she never answered. I fell asleep on the small kitchen couch. "Seryoja, why are you sleeping here?" My wife's voice woke me. I jumped to my feet and stared at her. "Where were you?" "At Masha's. Why?" I stayed silent for a moment, trying to wake up properly. "And why didn't you answer your phone?" "You called?" Vika pulled her phone from her pocket and glanced at the screen, then shrugged. "Strange. I didn't hear it. Maybe the sound was off." I felt hurt, but Vika acted like nothing had happened, and soon I brushed off the incident too. But then it started happening more and more often. Only now, Vika warned me in advance. "I'm staying at Masha's tonight," she'd message me. "Vika, why do you sleep over at your friend's place instead of coming home?" I asked once. Coming home from work, I wanted nothing more than to hold her in my arms. But instead, all that waited for me was an empty bed. Vika looked at me, puzzled. "Seryoja, just because I'm married doesn't mean I can't spend time with my friends." "Sure, but why overnight?" "Because we girls like to party late. You wouldn't want me walking home alone in the middle of the night, would you?" Her explanation seemed logical, and I let it go. After all, I told myself, I shouldn't pressure Vika. She had her own life, too. Then came Vika's birthday. We celebrated with a big group of her friends at someone's country house. I drank too much and passed out upstairs. In the middle of the night, I woke up with a pounding headache and went to the kitchen for a glass of water. That's when I saw her on the floor, tangled in the arms of one of the guests. It took me a moment to recognize that the girl writhing in his embrace was my wife. My first thought was that maybe they hadn't found a place to sleep. When Vika noticed me, she reacted calmly. "I'll come up to you in a minute, Seryoja." "Why?" I asked, confused. Vika shrugged. I turned around and walked outside, sitting down on the porch, burying my head in my hands. Soon the door creaked, and Vika stood in front of me. "What's wrong? Are you upset?" she asked. "Are you joking?" I glared at her. People get upset when a cement delivery is late. What I just saw, that causes entirely different feelings. Vika shivered. It was chilly outside. "Let's talk about this in the morning." "I'm tired." "What's left to discuss?" "Why are you overreacting?" Vika raised her voice. "I thought you had a broader view of life. People say you used to have more girls than you could count." "That's different. That was before we got married." "Oh, come on. Did you really think you'd stay faithful to me for the rest of your life?" "Well, I planned to," I muttered. Vika rolled her eyes. "Are you still mentally stuck in your little village? Life here works differently. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill. Let's go to bed. We'll talk tomorrow." "There's nothing to talk about," I said. "Call me a dinosaur if you want, but I'm not going to live by those rules. If that's what you wanted, it would have been more honest not to marry at all, and just live like my father." I stood up and walked away, straight out the gate, never once looking back. I headed toward the highway and caught a passing ride. By the time I reached home, morning had already arrived. Without a moment's hesitation, I packed my things, left the necessary amount of money on the table to cover that month's rent, and got into my car, parked outside. 6 years had passed since I arrived in that city, and not once in all that time had I returned home. Maybe Vika was right. Maybe I wasn't suited for that kind of life. Maybe I really was, just a village guy at heart. I drove toward the outskirts of the city and once on the highway, turned in the direction of my hometown. The closer I got to the familiar places, the lighter I felt inside. I didn't know why I was going or what I expected to find, but my heart felt like it was singing. Our house had completely fallen into disrepair while I was away. From the looks of it, the roof must have collapsed during the heavy snow of the past winter. My first stop was my mother's grave. I sat there for a long, long time, not thinking of anything in particular. A few times I felt tears welling up and wanted to hug the simple wooden village cross, but I held myself back. I couldn't let Mom see what I had become living next to my father. That night I slept in my car, and by early morning I already had a clear plan of what to do next. I drove straight to the nearby town where I'd gone to school and where I knew I could find work. I didn't have much money left, but it was enough to get me started. Life in the village wasn't as expensive as in the city. Besides, I quickly found work where I could use the construction skills I'd gained over the years. There were plenty of private homes being built in the area, and the pay wasn't bad either. Seryoga, you're a smart guy and hardworking. Why didn't you continue your education? Our site supervisor, Sanich, asked me one day, watching me work. It just didn't work out that way, I chuckled, not wanting to explain the story of my life in the city. I had recently finalized my divorce, and nothing tied me to that old life anymore. There's a branch of the Architecture Institute in the next town over. You could study part-time without quitting work. What's the point of that? I asked. What kind of question is that? You're young, you've got your whole life ahead of you. What, you plan on mixing cement your whole life? That evening, lying on the couch in the small room I was renting, a third of an old barrack house, I looked up everything I could about enrolling in the Architecture Institute. The next day, I told Sanich about my idea. Good thinking, Sergey, he said, clapping me on the shoulder. By fall, I had enrolled in the architecture program. Studying was fascinating. My whole life felt transformed. It seemed like this was what I had wanted all along. By the time I reached my third year, a new professor arrived at our branch, Ekaterina Alexandrovna. Under the gaze of her dark eyes, studying became much harder. But even harder than studying was simply living from one semester to the next. At night, her image drove me crazy, and during the day, thinking about her constantly made me mess things up. Seryoga, what's wrong with you? Asked the foreman. You're about to ruin the whole batch of mortar. Oh, sorry, Sanich, I was lost in thought. I can see that, he smirked. By the way, how's my daughter doing? Is she fitting in with the team? No one's bothering her, I hope? Your daughter? Who? I asked, confused. Katya, Ekaterina Alexandrovna. She teaches at your institute now. I blushed as red as a beet. Just a minute ago, while mixing the mortar, I had been mentally embracing the foreman's daughter. Now, I felt incredibly ashamed to look him in the eyes, especially when Sanich, as if he understood everything, added, "Keep an eye on her for me. Don't let anyone hurt her." For almost 6 months after that, I couldn't gather the courage to confess my growing feelings to Katya, and when I finally tried to ask her out, I ended up blurting out complete nonsense. Maybe, after all the time I'd spent in the village, I'd simply forgotten how to talk to women. Or maybe I never knew how to, at least not with real women, the kind you just want to walk through a field with, holding hands, without thinking about where the nearest haystack might be. Katya didn't agree to go out with me right away either, which only confused me more. I wasn't used to rejection. It wasn't until my final year of study that Ekaterina Alexandrovna finally accepted my invitation to have dinner together. Later, when we were already married, Katya told me that, For a long time, she couldn't see the real me. Every time you tried to ask me out, you had this expression on your face, like you were going hunting, and I was your prey. I couldn't reconcile the two sides of you, my top student Sergei, and that arrogant peacock who couldn't control his impulses. "I'll change, Katya, I swear," I told her seriously, looking straight into my wife's eyes. I just had bad teachers when it came to the science of love. Dear listener, if you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel, hit the thumbs up button, and share your thoughts in the comments. That really helps our channel grow. This story was narrated for you by Tatyana Orlova, written by Svetlana Yufreyeva, published on Yandex Zen under the channel Mandarinka. And from the bottom of my heart, I wish you all the best, strong health, peaceful skies above your head, and good spirits. See you in the next story.